Moonlight painted the high flanks of the giant's lance in argent and shadow, a cold sheen upon sharper stone, and Petyr Baelish watched it from a balcony half hidden behind winter-brittle ivy. 200 feet below, the mountain dropped away in knife-edged terraces, each hung with ravens' nests and patches of stubborn snow that refused spring's command. Farther below still, the lights of the Erie's lower keep glimmered like field stars. And beyond those, though he could not see them tonight, the mountain road twisted downward. The mountain road twisted downward through dizzying gaps to the moon gates and the Vale of Arryn, spread wide as a silvered bowl. All of it, Petyr thought, might fit one day inside the pocket of his doublet, if only the right piece were coaxed into place. He closed his hand upon the chill stone balustrade, feeling the throb of old excitement, the bright ache of ambition stirring in the marrow. In Petyr's reckoning, most things in the world were no more than counters moved on a Sivas board. But there were days, rare as comets, when the board itself shifted beneath a man's fingers. Jon Arryn's death had been such a day, and Lysa's weary descent into terror. Her fear that the dragons of King's Landing would come to take her child was another. A third was nearly upon him, the day when Robert Arryn would call Petyr Baelish father. Behind him, the wind slipped through the balcony arch, billowing velvet drapes into the chamber like phantoms seeking warmth. He watched them idle and settle again before turning inside. Lysa sat at a small table strewn with half-emptied flagons and rich cakes gone dry at their edges. The torchlight of the room, shimmering in bronze sconces, set her hair afire and threw restless amber across the creases beside her eyes. Those lines were new since her flight from the city. Fear had laid them, and jealousy deepened each groove like a mason's chisel. She looked up, wild and wide, as he crossed the thick carpets. They whisper again, Petyr. Maester Colwinan says the boy is too weak for a voyage, and Sir Donal wants him sent to the gates for air. They plot to steal him from me. Petyr knelt beside her chair, taking her trembling hand between his own. No one will steal Sweet Robin, no matter what songs they mutter in the kitchens. Are you certain? Her grip cut, tiny claws. The Lannisters killed my lord husband. They will kill my boy as well. I am certain, he whispered, smoothing her knuckles with his thumb. I have a gift for quieting murmurs, my love. Do you trust me? She sought his eyes, lips trembling. How many times had he conjured that tremor upon them? With all my heart. Then let me bear the burden. You have carried Robert alone too long. He paused, allowing the silence to ripen. Let the realm see he is no longer only the sickly babe of Lady Lysa, but the ward and the son of Lord Petyr Baelish, protector of the Vale. Her breath caught. Somewhere beyond the glass panes, an owl cried its solitary question. Lysa's gaze drifted across the shadows, searching for a safer world than the one she knew. You would adopt him? Petyr smiled, soft as falling ash. A man may inherit fear when he inherits a title. Better he inherits security. I would not replace Jon Arryn in his heart, but I might give him a father's cloak against the winds to come. Tears welled full and sparkling, the easy tears that had bought her 1,000 indulgences. Yet tonight, petal-often though they appeared, they sprang from deeper wells. Longing, exhaustion, and the half-remembered prayers of a girl who once bled for want of a different lover. That ghost hovered between them, but Petyr only brushed a curl from her cheek and waited. In long practice he had learned that silence, deftly timed, could be sharper than any blade in Bravos. If I agree, she breathed, they will hate me. The lords of the Vale are proud. They will say I betray Jon, that I make his heir a bastard in truth. Not a bastard, he murmured. A fosterling raised to manhood in the shadow of two houses joined. Robert's name will remain Arryn. His bloodline will remain pure. But his fortunes... Ah, sweet Lysa, his fortunes will double. And those who scoff today will kneel tomorrow when coin flows like melting snow into every valley. Natter temtum. He felt her pulse soften beneath his fingertips, the tempo of surrender. Coin was a language even the lords declarant spoke, though they preferred the grumbling dialect of honor. If the Vale's harvest sold twice over, if its granaries multiplied behind ledger columns that only Baelish men could read. Who among its stubborn knights would refuse a sip of prosperity? A man might choke on pride, but never on gold. Lysa's shoulders sagged, the rigid tension that held her spine unbending one aching notch. They will require oaths. I shall give them, in the sky cells if need be. But first we must tend to Robert. He rose, kissed the crown of her head, felt the sweat of fright damp there like morning dew. Allow me to speak with Maester Coleman. We must dress this cure in proper ceremony. Before she could protest, he drifted toward the arched door, cloak swishing a whisper across the rugs. Halfway there he paused, turning just enough that torchlight caught the sly lift of his brow. Rest, my lady. Tomorrow, the world will be lighter upon your shoulders. When the door shut behind him, he allowed himself a breath that tasted of sap and snowmelt. The corridor lay quiet, save for the distant clatter of servants scrubbing the evening scullery. Petter's boots made ghost prints upon the tiled floor as he moved beneath painted vaults, winged knights defending the Maiden of the Vale, rendered in blues and whites so pure they smacked of old Valentines. How quaint, he mused, to believe honor wore such tidy colors. A corner turned, and he found Maester Coleman hunched at a reading lectern, thin shoulders twitching through dun robes as he scratched quills across parchment. Candles ringed him like penitents. At Petter's footfall, the maester looked up, glasses trembling on the bridge of his nose. Lord Baelish, he said, bowing from the waist. Is the lady well? Tired. Petter inspected a shelf of dusty tomes. The weight of motherhood bears heavily at such heights. Coleman dipped his pen once, cautious. Indeed. The boy's cough worsens after nightfall. I counseled warm goat's milk, but... Thank you. Petter's smile flitted in, out. In the morning you will draft a proclamation. Robert Arryn shall become my ward, with Lady Lysa's consent. The High Septon himself will bless the arrangement. I have already secured his favor. The maester's quill ceased its scribbling. A ward, but his lordship will remain heir of the Vale unbeaten. Yet whispers haunt our halls, maestro. They say the boy is frail, that the Vale needs a steadier hand until he comes of age. Do you know who speaks these doubts the loudest? Coleman swallowed. The Lords Declarant. Precisely. Petter plucked a leather-bound treatise from the shelf, leafed past yellowed pages. We must answer them with confidence, maester, not hesitation. The lad will keep his birthright, but until his voice breaks and his sword arm thickens, I shall keep him safe as my own blood. Write it so. The quill resumed, scratching fear into ink. Petter set the treatise back, strolling deeper among shelves where shadows pooled thick. He lingered before a window slit and traced with one finger the faint outline of the Vale far below, its fields drowned in night. Soft glimmers swam where towns clustered beside rivers. Each was a small hope waiting to be turned to leverage. Even in darkness, the realm gleamed like coin. Behind him, parchment crackled. Coleman coughed. There are forms to observe, seals needed. Bring them to my solar at first light. Have rookery ravens prepared to fly as far as Gulltown. He tilted his head, the picture of absent curiosity. And, maester, should anyone ask, Lord Royce, Sir Lyn Corbray, whomever, advise them that the high seat of the Vale remains with House Arryn. But if they worry for the boy's health, let them rejoice that I have offered to shoulder his care. Yes, Derwin. Coleman bent, scribbling. Yet Petter saw the older man's brow knot with silent sums of loyalty versus prudence. Good, he thought. Let scholars brood over ethics. By the time their quills reach the last flourish, the deed is done. When he left the library, the corridor stretched before him like a promise. His strides lengthened, his heart drumming a steady cadence. Momentum. This was the hour to gather it, to push each set piece into motion before dawn's pale fingers pried at curtains. Near the Maiden's Tower, he found Sir Brynden Tully leaning against a window inset, moonlight carving hollows in his cheeks. The Blackfish glanced up, unsmiling. Sneaking through shadows, Baelish, admiring the view. Petter joined him, shoulder to stone. My eyes stray far these nights. Brynden sniffed. Eyes stray where tongues scheme, so my sister used to say. A rare wit, your lady sister. Petyr brushed imaginary lint from his sleeve. Tell me, sir, do the knights still grumble at their new quarters? They grumble at everything. Mountain men haunt the passes, yet the Eyrie sends no riders. They say the lady hides behind goose-down curtains, while her bannermen bleed. Mine Rancy, how fortunate she has brave men to guard her. Petyr's gaze drifted to Bryndon's sworn sword hanging easy at his hip. The lady must sleep sounder knowing the Blackfish stands watch. Aye. The knight's jaw twitched. I stand watch, and mark all comings and goings as is my charge. Petyr inclined his head, neither bow nor mockery. Then I pray you mark tomorrow's sunrise. Change is in the wind, sir. The Vale will need stout hearts to steady it. Bedding. Bryndon's eyes narrowed river gray. Change seldom favors maidens or sweet young boys. Nor does stagnation, Petyr replied. He pushed off the wall and offered a courteous nod. Good night, sir. He left Bryndon to his vigil, cloaked again by corridors whose torches sputtered in gusts from high casements. The Eyrie was a maze of white-gray stone, airy as a schooner's sails yet steeped in old blood. Petyr knew each twist as well as he knew the decks of the Merling King in Gulltown Harbor, where once a boy from the Fingers had scrubbed barnacles for coppers. Paths changed, but some truths abided. A clever man need not wield the oar when he might chart the course. He reached his solar, a modest chamber compared with the lord's apartments of Harrenhal or King's Landing. But the key was not grandeur. It was position. From here, Raven lofts lay only a flight above, the kitchens two below, and the servants' stair ran behind a tapestry depicting Sir Artys, Arryn in first flight upon a falcon. Position was everything. Inside, the fire had settled to red marshes of ember. Petyr stirred it with an iron tongue, coaxing fresh flame, then poured mulled wine from a waiting flagon. He sipped, savoring spice and heat. Across the table lay ledgers, pages ruled in tidy columns that glimmered faintly with dusting powder. Grain levies, harbor tolls, debts owed by the Gates of the Moon for roof repairs after last winter's icefall. He touched each number like a lover's freckle. When the wine had warmed his belly, he unstoppered ink, drew open a fresh parchment and began a letter. To my most honored cousin, Lord Jan Royce. Words flowed in neat slants. He spoke of concern for sweet Robin's health, of his own humble wish to shelter the boy from undue burdens. He extolled Roy's courage and hinted, ever so gently, that the realm's enemies might exploit the boy's weakness unless stalwart bannermen stood united behind a strong guiding hand. Nothing overt, merely seeds. He signed with a flourish, set it aside to dry, and began another. This to Sir Lyn Corbray, whose temper could be coaxed with promise of debt relief and fresh steel for his brother's garrison. By the time flame licked low again, 6 letters lay drying. Petyr capped his ink and leaned back, allowing exhaustion to settle only at the fringes of thought. Dawn glimmered faint beyond the casement. The sky trembled pale violet above the world's jagged edge. He listened to the hush before servants woke, before the first cockcrow echoed from the gates thousands of feet below. In that hush, he could hear his future whispering. Robert Arryn would call him father. The Vale's vast stores of grain would pass beneath his sigil. Gulltown's harbor fees, the mountain passes, the coin of Andals, and first men alike. All would pivot upon his name, and with the Vale secured, what then? River Run? High Garden? Some men amassed kingdoms as children stacked stones on a beach, careless of tide. But Petyr Baelish would build where tide must serve him. He rose, fastening his cloak. The ravens awaited, and beyond them, the boy. Rap Erwin's. Robert's bedchamber smelled of sweet oils and damp linen. Feather-ticked pillows propped the child upright, though he slumped against them, eyelids half-masked. His breath wheezed, a flute note trapped in lead pipes. Serving girls flitted about, anxious to unspool him from blankets, lest his lordling limbs grow numb. Petyr crossed the rush-strewn floor with soft steps. "Sweet Robin," he murmured, smiling as if nothing in all 7 kingdoms delighted him more than this frail 8-year-old with winter skin. "Do you remember the song I taught you? The boy's gaze wavered, unfocused. Yet when Petyr hummed the opening bars, Robert's lips twitched, following the tune. His voice emerged thin but eager, a soap bubble rising. The maiden fair, the falcon high. Petyr joined softly, letting the melody weave comfort. When they finished, he perched on the bed's edge. Your mother worries, you know. She always worries. The boy's brows met in tiny thunderclouds. She says the wind might break my bones. Nonsense. The wind only wishes to feel your hair. He laid a hand lightly on Robert's shoulder, mindful of how fragile collarbones perched beneath. Would you like a new father, sweetling? Robert blinked. A cough rattled deep, but he swallowed it. Curious. A father? I already had one. He died. A father in name to guide you till you're grown. Someone to teach you Sivas better than Maester Coleman, who cheats. The corners of Robert's mouth lifted at the forbidden joke. He had seen Coleman's clumsy blunders often enough. Who? Me, if you wish it. But only if you wish it. Petyr held the boy's gaze, letting possibility bloom with careful slowness. Your mother agrees it might help the lords of the Vale sleep easier, seeing you guarded by 2 strong houses instead of 1. Robert considered, eyes drifting to a carven falcon perched above the bed. White marble wings poised to spring into cold wind. Will you play Sivas with me every evening? Every evening, Petyr vowed. And I shall lose most terribly, or else you'll send me to the moon door. The boy giggled, then coughed, then giggled again. At last he nodded. Solemn. Very well. You may be father. Ma. Petyr's smile deepened, though only his eyes revealed the measure of triumph. He squeezed Robert's hand gently. Then, it is done. Rest now. There will be ceremonies, oaths to hear, maesters poking you till you squeal. But afterward, we shall feast on lemon cakes. He rose. As he turned, the boy's thin voice followed. Father. Yes. Sweetling. Can we move the moon door? It frightens mother. An easy promise. We can put it anywhere you like. Robert's eyelids fluttered shut, content. Petyr left on soundless feet. Outside, dawn had lifted the mountains in rose-gold armor. The Vale lay revealed, rivers flashing like drawn blades beneath early sun. Petyr Baelish tasted the light on his tongue, a flavor like warm copper, and knew the day was his. When? The high hall of the Eyrie echoed with clustered voices hours later, when the Lord's bannermen were summoned. Pale columns soared into blue vaults, their capitals carved with hunting scenes, falcons stooping toward stags. The moon door, yawning an armspan across, lay shuttered by a thick slab of weirwood to blunt the wind. Even so, the air tasted of snow. Petyr stood beside Liza atop the high dais, Robert's chair between them. The boy sat small beneath a towering Arryn backboard, chased with silver dawn wings. Maester Coleman fussed over parchment scrolls, while Septons arranged white candles in concentric rings. Lord Jan Royce arrived first, steps ringing stern upon the marble. His bronze plate glimmered darkly, runes half wallowed by polish. Others followed. Nestor Royce of the Gates, stout and ragey-cheeked, Sir Donal Wainwood in grey cloak trimmed green, Sir Lyn Corbray, restless as a drawn blade. They took their places, murmuring low, suspicion thickening the chilly hall. When all had gathered, Petyr raised a hand. Silence fell, broken only by the creak of banners overhead. He let the hush stretch, time enough for unease to root, for imaginations to conjure dire import. Then spoke in a measured tenor that carried to vaulted corners. My lords of the Vale, you come summoned, not by threat nor command, but by fraternity. We stand beneath wings we all share, pledged to guard the seat of House Arryn until his high seat grows to fit his shoulders. He gestured to Robert, who toyed with a silk tassel. Yet threats breed in shadow, and shadows gather when a candle gutters. I would make that candle blaze. Murmurs rippled. Corbray's dark eyes glittered, eager for blood or profit. It mattered little which. Petyr continued. By consent of Lady Lysa, widow of the late Lord John and mother to Lord Robert, I humbly petition to adopt the boy as my son and ward. that two houses might stand where one totters, and the Vale might present to the realm a united face, unsullied by talk of weakness. A heavy hush settled. So stark he heard the rasp of silk as Lysa clenched her skirts. Lord John Royce stepped forward, bronze cuirass groaning. An adoption? Has the lady no faith in her blood? She has faith, Petty replied, bowing fractionally. Faith enough to share its burden with allies proven. You know my service to the crown. Gultan's harbor thrives, the fingers prosper. Grant me the honor to serve the Vale with equal devotion. Then it shall. Royce's thick brows knit. Devotion grows from soil, Lord Baelish. Your roots are shallow in these mountains. Roots may be coaxed deeper, Pettier said. All they require is room to grow. Sir Lyn Corbray laughed, short and sharp. And how much coin to water them? Pettier turned, letting the quirk of his mouth flicker. Whatever sum softens stony hearts. The hall stirred. Some knights smirked at Corbray's expense. Others exchanged wary frowns. Pettier felt the tide tilt, not yet enough to crest. Yet the undertow gathered. Lysa's voice cut through, quavering but resolute. My lords, hear me. My son is frail. Pettier has been his comfort since King's Landing. I believe, with all my heart, that the Seven placed him in our path. Will you deny a mother's plea for her child's safety? Royce's jaw hardened. Pettier glimpsed the old warrior's competing loyalties. The late John Arryn's ghost whispering duty, and the anxious promise of trade routes gleaming through Baelish books. He pressed the advantage. In token of goodwill, Pettier announced, I shall have harbor tariffs on grain shipped from Runestone and the gates for the next 5 years. Further, I pledge 1,000 spears from Gulltown to guard mountain passes until the mountain clans are broken. That turned a head or two. Lord Nestor coughed into his hand, eyes alight with sums he would not admit counting. Sir Donald Wainwood cleared his throat. If your oath is sworn before the High Septon, it shall be. Pettier gestured toward the gray-robed Septon, who nodded. Royce exhaled, a blast of frost. Very well. The sun needs stronger wings. I will not stand in the way of a mother's hope, so long as the boy's birthright remains unblemished. More. It will, Pettier promised. This adoption grants protection, not usurpation. When Robert comes of age, rule passes to him unchallenged. Slow, reluctant nods circled the dais. Pettier felt the cusp of decision tip his way. Then Sir Lyn Corbray strode forward, sword rattling as he walked. If your purse is so open, Lord Baelish, perhaps you'll settle the debts of Heart's home. The Vale must trust a father who pays his own. Pettier smiled. Send me the tally, sir. My steward shall call by week's end. Then. Corbray stopped 2 paces away, surprise flickering, then grudging amusement. I will. Pettier set a hand upon Robert's narrow shoulder. Let witness be taken. Before the Seven, the lords of the Vale, and all gods that keep these peaks, I claim Robert Arryn, my son, and swear to shield him with life and fortune until the day he needs them no more. Maester Coleman stepped forward, unrolling parchment bearing wax seals. Pettier pressed his signet into warm red wax, the mockingbird crest becoming law's imprint. Lysa signed next, her hand trembling so that the imprint wavered, half mockingbird, half smudge. Then the lords declarant affixed theirs, one by one. Royce, Wainwood, Redfort, Belmore, even Corbray after a long pause. Until 9 wax seals glowed like fresh wounds on parchment. The Septon lifted his hands. May the Father judge these oaths worthy, the warrior lend them strength, and the Mother bless this bond of love. He drew an invocation in the air, candles trembling around him. It was done. In the hush that followed, Pettier heard only his own heartbeat, steady as a metronome marking prophet. He looked down at Robert, who gazed up, trusting and pale. In the boy's watery blue eyes he saw a mirror pitched far beyond the moment. Fields ripening, ships docking, lords kneeling, and at last the Iron Throne gleaming beneath the stained glass dragons of the Red Keep. All roads, if plotted with care, wound eventually to that black beast of melted swords. For now, the road began with a boy's cough and a parchment seal. Pettier knelt before the child. kissed his brow, and spoke a father's first command. "Rest, my son. The mountains will move for you." Mauner, Manu. In nights that followed, drums of gossip beat through every tower of the Eyrie. Some whispered that Baelish sought only easier access to Lysa's bed. Others claimed he meant to keep the boy alive just long enough to vault himself upon the high seat. Still others muttered of debts paid in blood and silver, of quiet meetings with Gulltown captains whose holds could ferry arms unseen up the narrow sea. But none could deny the changes that came swift as spring melt. Grain levies eased. Roads patrolled by new-minted Gulltown guards grew safer for market trains. Coin trickled, then flowed, into holdfast coffers extended credit by Pettir's factors at generous terms. Lord Belmore found his mines graced by improved smelting forges financed by Baelish silver. Sir Donald Wainwood discovered young sons offered squires positions at Gulltown's arsenal. Lord John Royce, after much grumbling, accepted shipments of river barley sold cheap enough to feed winter stocks twice over. With each boon, the Vale's old skepticisms eroded. When Lord Hunter queried whether it was fit for an Andalic stronghold to be tutored by a man of uncertain root, Lord Belmore shrugged and asked if Hunter's men preferred full bellies or empty pride. Pride, it seemed, bent knees to lesser hungers. Not all were mollified. In Heartshome's storm-laced halls, Sir Lyn Corbray sharpened Lady Forlorn and prayed aloud for opportunity. Beyond the bloody gate, Bronze Jan clutched rund armor and dreamt uneasy dreams of falcons whose wings bore mockingbird eyes. Yet censure found fewer voices willing to sing it. Within the Eyrie, Robert's health improved in small but certain steps. Maester Coleman praised new regimen. Short walks upon sunlit balconies, honey-steeped milk sprinkled with ground hazelnut, gentle bouts of Savas that sharpen mind without taxing lungs. Pettir attended each game, losing with just enough resistance to spur the boy's triumph without unraveling his fragile confidence. Soon Robert asked for lessons in accounts. How tallies of grain corresponded to coins, how ships were taxed upon berth. Pettir obliged eagerly. He coaxed the boy to mark ledgers with delicate script, to color provinces on vellum maps, to grasp the simple truth that power did not rest only upon swords, but upon the counting sticks behind them. In Robert's bright fascination, Pettir saw the shape of a future ally, malleable, indebted, yet bearing the Arryn name that opened door after door in the Vale's stony labyrinth. Lysa watched these studies. Fingers knotted in her skirts, relief mingled with jealousy like wine gone sour. Sometimes Pettir felt her gaze burning. Sometimes she burst into chambers unbidden, pressing kisses to his mouth, clinging as if terror gnawed her bones. He indulged her fears, fed them gentle lies or softer promises, each calibrated to keep her tether short. Love, he had learned, was a leash of silk. Supple, nearly invisible, yet unyielding when drawn tight. Summer ventured onward. Far below, orchards in the Vale ripened under sweet breezes. Trade caravans wound safely through the high road, their banners bright, their purses plump. Pettir's factors recorded profits that would shame Lannisters. Yet coin, like seed, was useless if left unplanted. So the investment spread outward. A modest fleet of gold-proud cogs purchased in Bravos arrived at Gulltown, carrying wares of the East and quiet sellswords on retainer. Pettir financed improvements to the Bloody Gate's defenses under guise of gratitude, all the while ensuring the gate captain owed him private favors. Letters flew to Storm's End proposing grain exports at discounted tariffs, binding the Baratheon Castellan in owed kindness. Highgarden received samples of Vale saffron in delicate purses, uncommon spice, a gesture approximating friendship. Each missive was couched in Robert Arryn's name. The Lord of the Vale sends his warmest regards. The child's sigil wax sealed them, each flourish whispering legitimacy. In council chambers across Westeros, maesters remarked how surprising it was that the sickly boy could muster such enterprising policy. But Pettir also knew a game played only in sunlight soon drew watchful eyes. The Vale needed a shadow in which to grow, and so he turned his mind to the one threat capable of uniting every mountain lord beneath his banner: the mountain clans themselves. Late one evening, he convened 3 captains from Gulltown's docks. In a narrow loft, above the granaries, maps littered a table, inked with red circles along mountain passes. "We will arm the burned men," he told them, voice smooth as dusk, but only enough to vex the stone crows and black ears. "Then when the Lord's cry foul, we ride out with fresh Gulltown spears to cleanse the passes. The clans will bleed each other thin. We arrive as saviors, and the Vale tilts its lance in gratitude." Menace. The captains exchanged wary glances. Petter laid gold on the table. Thick, shining dragons freshly minted in King's Landing. And trust was purchased in silence. Ramon Cat. Snow fell early that year, elders muttered. By first frost, word spread that stone crows had raided a Wainwood caravan near the high road, killing 10 and vanishing into storm-dark slopes. Corbray men, posted at the giant's lancefoot, found 3 gutted sentries, burned eyes staring skyward. A sign of the burned men. The mountain boiled with small wars. Petter convened the high lords under banners of urgency. He wore plain wool, face grave, voice measured. "The boy's safety requires decisive action," he told them. "Allow me to lead a wing of Gulltown's finest, backed by Redford crossbowmen and Wainwood knights. We will scour the clans before winter sets deep." Lord John scowled but could not deny reports. Sir Donald Wainwood, nursing grief for lost kin, seconded the motion. Corbray sniffed disdain but licked his lips at the promise of steel contracts. The vote carried. Petter, of course, never intended to ride at the van. He appointed Sir Vardis Egan commander, gave him maps, coin, and promises. Then he retired to the Eyrie, where Robert demanded another Savas match. Petter lost with elegant contortions, letting the boys' laugh ring off marble. Skirmishes lit the mountains in autumn's dying days. Word drifted back of Stone Crow, ambushes foiled by uncanny foreknowledge, thanks to burned men tipped by anonymous coin. Each petty victory gilded Petter's standing. Each fresh outrage stoked demand for his leadership. By the time snow sealed the passes, clan strength lay half its former muster. Gulltown spears held every crucial ridge, and the Vale's bannermen toasted Lord Protector Baelish in their halls, even as they signed new contracts pledging a tithe of harvest to the Eyries' coffers. When in Death gapped. So winter's first full moon found Petter standing again upon his favorite balcony, watching starlight shiver across snowfields far below. Behind him, in chambers warmed by roaring hearths, Robert slept the sound sleep of children who believe mountains will move at their word. Liza dozed in a chair nearby, exhaustion smoothing her brow. Petter breathed the cold, tasted destiny's iron tang. The world, he mused, was not unlike Savas. Pieces moved, pieces captured, but victory belonged not to the boldest charge, rather to the quiet hand that set the board before the game began. He had set the board well. In the distance, beyond sight but not imagination, a greater board awaited, one whose squares spanned from Sunspear to the wall. The Vale was merely a rook advanced to center. Soon, with patience, finesse, and the unwitting aid of a boy who called him father, Petter Baelish would tip the whole realm into check. Let them call him Lord Protector. Let them sing of Robert Arryn's miraculous recovery, of mountain roads cleared by Gulltown valor, of harvests doubled and trade restored. He would wear each laurel lightly, for laurels were only leaves. What mattered was the vine that bore them, and the vine twined tonight around every pillar of the Eyrie. Petter closed his eyes and imagined the iron throne beneath him, edges biting though layers of silk. He imagined a hush across court as he rose, gesturing for the boy beside him to kneel. He imagined the cheers when Robert Arryn, come of age and brimming with newfound vigor, took wings of steel upon his shoulders and proclaimed Petter Baelish the true regent of the realm. The vision glowed like forge-bright steel, warming him against alpine wind. It was not yet forged in reality, but sparks flew whenever ambition struck iron. Petter opened his eyes. Snow drifted gentle, pale as the marble halls behind him. He breathed deep of frost and fortune and whispered to the night, "Soon, round." In a small rookery chamber above, a raven hopped along its perch, clacking beak against bars. feathers black as spilled ink. Upon its leg, a message waited, bound by twine. The bird cocked its head, silent judge over plans woven by men who thought themselves gods. Then it fluttered wings, preening for flight at dawn, when yet another letter would join the widening web. And far below, in valleys sleeping under new snowfall, fires flickered in hearths where lords counted Baelish coins, each golden dragon a lullaby to pride. Families dreamt of full pantries. Soldiers dreamt of paid service. And none dreamt, not yet, of the cliff's edge disguised beneath that wealth. Morning would come, pale and impartial, and Petyr Baelish would walk its light as though he owned the sun. But for this sliver of night, the world balanced perfectly upon a mockingbird's wing. Ka-a-k. Winter lingered like a possessive lover, clinging to every ridge of the giant's lance long after the rest of Westeros tasted spring. Night sharpened stone into knives, and the Vale's sky glittered with cruel stars. Petyr Baelish embraced the chill. The thin air kept men cautious, mouths closed, minds clear. In such clarity he found room to maneuver. The morning after the first full-blown blizzard, he convened a quiet supper in the solar. Just Robert Lysa, Maester Coleman, and Septa Menisa, whose hymns soothed the boy to sleep. A single roast capon steamed between them. The smell of thyme and lemon curled through coals, but Lysa scarcely touched her plate. She watched Robert spear morsels with more vigor than he'd shown in months, hope brightening her uneven smile. Petyr, carving breast meat, heard the faint scratch of parchment as Coleman recorded dosage alterations. "Maester," Petyr said, pouring watered wine, "what think you of a pilgrimage? The sept of the snowy dawn at Snowfall Ridge is reputed to work miracles for lingering ills. A month's journey by litter, perhaps less if the roads hold." "Nine?" Coleman's quill paused. "The air there is thin still, but drier. It might benefit his humors." "And the mother?" Petyr glanced to Lysa. "A change of walls may lighten heart and mind." Her eyes widened. "Leave the Eyrie, with mountain clans so near. Servardus has garrisons on every pass." Petyr gestured lightly. "There." The worry dismissed. "Priests say the snowy dawn's spring water carries blessings of the mother herself. Imagine returning with Robert Hale enough to spar with Royce's squires." "No." Robert's fork froze mid-air. "Sparring?" "Soft blades, feather helm," Petyr assured him. "Even kings must learn to parry." The boy's lips pursed, uncertain, yet a glimmer of pride colored his cheeks. Lysa's fingers knotted napkin lace. "If we go, the court follows. And the lords will sulk at missing their harvest councils." "The lords," Petyr said, smiling, "will rejoice to hold those councils themselves. Let them taste burden." He set the carving knife down. "We depart at first thaw." Thaw came slow, yet when it arrived, the valley floor exploded in green. From high balconies the descent looked irresistible. Ribbons of meadow, orchards pink with new blossom, torrents cascading in diamond spray. Petyr oversaw preparations with effortless precision. Litters lined with sable cushions, panniers of ciders and dried figs, spare mules laden with seals and scrolls. He named Sir Lyn Corbray second commander under Servardus, a gesture that drew a thin, startled laugh from the volatile knight. Corbray cornered him amid the stables as grooms tightened girths. "Why fling a sword like mine in front of your litter?" "Because its edge sings truest when audience is grand." Petyr adjusted his gloves. "Win me a skirmish or two, the Vale applauds. And afterwards, I'll settle Heartshome's arrears and double your sister's dowry." Corbray's eyes gleamed, hunger warring with suspicion. "You play deep games, Baelish." He mounted his courser without awaiting reply. Hoofbeats ringing off the cobbles like thrown coins. Petyr watched him go, calculating the precise weight of vanity. The caravan wound downward through passes freshly carved by Petyr's coin. Widened cuts, new parapets, winches mounted where the road steepened to cliff. Mountain clans lurked beyond scree slopes, yet when burned men rose from ravines, Gulltown archers already owned the heights. Arrows hissed, clansmen fell. Sir Lyn's bright blade flashed, carving a reputation that would be retold beside hearthfires all summer. Baelish's lion, minstrels called him. For though Corbray flew a falcon, he roared like the golden cats of the west, and rumors sped faster than ravens. Robert, swaddled in furs within his litter, listened wide-eyed to each report. At the snowy dawn he limped into the octagonal septi, knelt upon silk cushions, and drank holy water doled by veiled septas. Candles scented with pine sap smoked up vaulted rafters. When Robert emerged, cheeks flushed by the climb, he declared the draught sweet as arbor gold. Lysa wept, sure it was important. Petyr let faith ferment. He ordered daily walks along cloistered gardens, then short rides upon a pony led by Septus. Each new step the boy completed without fainting, unleashed fresh torrents of praise from mother and priests. Petyr accepted their blessings with head bowed, hiding the smile that threatened to crack his mask. At night, he worked by lamplight, drafting letters in Robert's careful hand. One to Gull Town's merchants, for giving next moon's port taxes. Another to House Royce, promising investments in new ore tunnels. A third to Casterly Rock, cloaked in pleasantry, offering the Vale's neutrality should trouble stir in the riverlands. A fourth flew south to Highgarden, hinting at saffron shipments, doubled if Mace Tyrell would champion young Robert's valor at a future tourney. And a fifth, most delicate, slipped across the narrow sea. My dearest Queen of Thorns, it began, though the old lady wore no crown. He extolled her cunning, begged advice on the rearing of impressionable heirs. A jest, yet beneath the jest glimmered promise. The Vale's ports, wide and eager, if only Highgarden would remember who opened them. When spring reached full flower, Petyr declared the pilgrimage a triumphant cure. The caravan climbed home to the eyrie beneath banners stitched with both mockingbird and moon and falcon. At each village they passed, folk pressed flowers to Robert's litter. Blessings, Lord Robert. Awed to see color in the boy's cheeks, Petyr ensured coin rained upon bright-eyed children, each silver stag stamped with the Arryn sigil and a diminutive mockingbird perched upon the rim. New minted this very season. They reached the gates of the moon by dusk on the 7th day. Lord Nestor awaited, with full household arrayed in double rows. Trumpets pealed, a bard's high note trembled through the mountains. Petyr dismounted, offering Nestor an embrace half cordial, half conspiratorial. "My lord," Nestor murmured, "word of your victories precedes you. The mountain passes teem with corpses." "Never mistake carrion for menace," Petyr replied. "But feed the crows well, and wolves will stay clear." They feasted that night upon roast boar so tender the bones slipped free. Wine flowed from Dornish casks, laughter chasing it. Petyr toasted Nestor's newly reinforced curtain wall, paid with Baelish gold, and promised fresh engineers by harvest. Lords too cautious to voice displeasure in the high hall now cheered each mention of his name. Those who earlier crowed at shallow roots now clasped his hand, whispering proposals of joint ventures. In private, though, Bronze Jon Royce retained his granite silence. On the balcony overlooking torchlit courtyards, he confronted Petyr, moonlight pooling on his rune-branded breastplate. "I have ridden these mountains 60 years, Royce rumbled. "They do not change at the whisper of a Gulltown banker, nor at the roar of bronze," Petyr answered lightly. "Yet they crumble by snowfall, stone by stone, until the peak stands reshaped." "Your snowfall is coin," Royce said. "Better gold than blood, my lord." They measured each other in the hush. Finally Royce spoke. "The boy lives. For that, I drink to you. But remember, your snowfall will melt when the sun returns." He stalked off, boots grinding grit, leaving Petyr with only the echo of his own smile. Let the old bear snarl. He was valued, unwilling witness of legitimacy, anchor against claims that the Vale sold itself cheaply. A skeptic's endorsement weighed more than a hero's. Summer's envoy from King's Landing arrived 2 moons later, a single Master of Raven's courier bearing a velvet pouch sealed with Joffrey's crowned stag lion. Within lay a strip of parchment scented faintly of rosewater, scrawled by royal hand. "Lord Petyr Baelish, Protector of the Vale, You are summoned to King's Landing for counsel in matters of coin and crown. Your swift obedience will please his grace. Signed, no doubt at sword point, by a tired Grand Maester Pycelle. Petyr read it by candlelight in the solar, while Coleman snored at his ledger desk. The flicker lit his eyes, revealed mirth. King's Landing beckoned. Another board. This one smeared with blood and secrets. Yet he weighed the cost of abandonment. Remove himself now, the Vale might tilt into old loyalties. Keep presence here, and he risked missing greater spoils. He summoned Sir Vardis and Sir Lyn at dawn. I go south. The boy remains safe? On my honor, Vardis said. Corbray merely smiled. If he falls, your game collapses. I play to win, Baelish. Memdal. Then protect my king, Petyr said. He kissed Lysa farewell in a wind-torn courtyard, her tears freezing on cheeks. Do not stray, she begged. Never, he whispered, stepping aboard a litter bound for Gulltown's port. In truth, his mind had already flown across half the realm. To streets where spies listened for coin, to brothels where rumors traded, to counting houses where ledgers recorded every sin of the throne. The sea voyage south proved swift and uneventful. When King's Landing's red walls emerged from morning fog, Petyr noted anew the poor state of its harbors. Rotting pilings, idle cranes, guilds mired in bribes. Opportunity stank among dead fish and bilge. He stepped ashore as though returning home, though guards at the city gate faintly recoiled from his mockingbird sigil, uncertain what weight it now carried. At the Red Keep, Lord Varys met him in the serpentine corridors of the lower Bailey. The eunuch's smile fluttered. Lord Petyr, a pleasure seldom glimpsed yet always savored. Varys, Petyr replied. I trust the realm hasn't crumbled in my absence? Crumbled? No. Settled into a comfortable rot, perhaps. Varys drew nearer, voice lowering. I hear you keep a young falcon safe in your nest. One must mind fledglings, Petyr said. One must, the spider agreed, eyes gleaming. Yet nests invite serpents. And webs, Petyr returned. They shared polite laughter, then parted. Petyr ascended to the small council chamber where Queen Regent Cersei waited, flanked by Pycelle. Littlefinger's vacated iron-shod chair, conspicuously vacant these months. He bowed, offered pleasantries, received a curt nod. We require coin, Cersei announced before he'd straightened. The Tyrells squeeze us on grain. The Iron Throne's debt grows faster than wildfire spreads. You will remedy this. Gladly, Petyr said. First, shipyard fees must double for captains sailing under Selsail banners. They will howl, but they cannot trade elsewhere without risk. Cersei's green eyes narrowed. And second, seize the faith's dormant tithes held in the city vaults. Call it a loan to defend the Seven's faithful. Petyr leaned close enough she could sense the honey wine on his breath. Third, open the Vale silos. Grain purchased cheap in spring can sell dear by autumn to a starving capital. I shall negotiate exclusive contracts. Pycelle bristled. The faith. Ow's gratitude for your pious rule, Petyr finished. Cersei exhaled slow, calculating menace. Do it, do it. He inclined his head. I require one grace in return. What grace? Send my personal seal to Winterfell, he lied, informing Lord Stark that the Vale stands neutral in his conflict with Ironborn raiders. A courtesy only. Cersei waved dismissively. As you wish. The seal, of course, would carry a very different letter, addressed to Sansa, whispering of loyalty unyielding and futures entwined, should she ever wish to escape wolves or lions. Seeds again? Some took years to sprout. Over the following fortnight, Petyr danced through the city's veins. He recoined 500,000 copper stars by recutting their edges, shaved silver stags to mint new half-stags, and sold crown-owned tourney grounds to Braavosi financiers whose receipts vanished into empty ledgers. Each trickle fed the treasury long enough to keep Cersei from chewing her tongue in rage. At brothels he still nominally owned. Whispers gathered. The king's hand plotted with the Vale. The Tyrells sniffed betrayal. Stannis' fiery priests stalked Fleabag docks preaching doom. Information flowed to Petter like wine to a thirsty man. He drank deep, stored more. But he lingered only as long as profit outweighed risk. Word from the Vale reached him. Robert's cough worsened, a spasm of winter rekindled by summer storms. Lysa demanded his return. The lords bickered again, Royce foremost, pressing for a full council to discuss grain tariffs. Petter saw more than mere unrest. He saw the chance to cement power in absence's vacuum, to reward loyalists by delivering them from their own confusion. He boarded a cog within the week, leaving King's Landing flush with coin yet emptier of answers than before. As the ship's prow cleaved the sea, he penned letters to Nestor, Waynwood, and even Bronze Jan. My esteemed lord, I have secured purchasing rights on Crown surplus steel. Expect convoys by first frost. In exchange, I ask only your votes in the coming council to guarantee investment in Vale irrigation. Our sons and grandsons will harvest bounty undreamt. His script flowed quick, practiced. By the time the Vale's peaks reared alabaster against the sky, couriers had flown well ahead, sowing anticipation. Robert's relapse, though worrying, proved less dire than reported. The boy had outgrown certain tinctures. Coleman adjusted dosages. Within days he was upright again, pale but eager for tales of the capital. Petter indulged him with sanitized stories. Men jousting for the Queen's honor, singers praising Robert's resilience. Lysa listened, jealousy glinting each time a capital lady was named. To temper her unease, Petter proposed betrothal negotiations. Robert to a daughter of House Redfort, an alliance reassuringly humble, unlikely to threaten Lysa's fierce proprietorship. She agreed, soothed by the notion of a meek daughter-in-law raised in Vale's own hills. Petter drafted terms, yet left enough ambiguity should a richer match arise. Summer matured. Harvest wagons rumbled fat to Gulltown, filling granaries until doors bulged. Petter's factors sold grain south at thrice the spring price. King's Landing's treasury note guaranteeing payment. Coin flooded back upriver, financing new roads, new forges, new loyalties. But politics, like a full granary, bred rats. Rumor spread that Petter meant to move the seat of power from the Erie to Gulltown year-round, leaving mountain lords bereft of their ancestral prestige. Royce voiced mistrust at a feast, tankard thumping. Gold pours east, he growled, but honor travels west. We were not born to scrape coin from Irish traders. Petter lifted his own goblet, smiled. Honor feeds proudly on roasted venison, yet coin buys the salt. Corbray laughed first. Others followed, half-hearted. Royce's jaw flexed like a smith's tongs. The fault line widened. Shortly after, a hunting accident rocked the Vale. Servardus Aiken, stalwart commander of the Erie, impaled upon a boar's tusk during a chase. Witnesses swore the beast sprang from nowhere, blades tangled in brush. When the dust settled, Egan bled out, white beard stained red. Petter attended the funeral in marble crypts beneath the gates of the moon, speaking a eulogy of loyalty and courage. Yet inside he weighed fresh variables. Vardis had served the Arryn's first, Baelish second. His death pruned an old limb. The new captain, Sir Marinchet, elevated by Petter's suggestion, owed his post to Gulltown's coin. Rumor, of course, blamed the clans. Petter did nothing to deter it. Indeed, he quietly armed another burned men band with rusted spears, pointed them toward Royce caravans. Skirmishes flared anew, ensuring calls for Gulltown reinforcements resurfaced, reinforcements answerable only to Petter. Autumn gusted down from the high peaks in drifts of color. Scarlet beech, amber ash, evergreen pine hugging cliff faces like dark watchmen. Robert celebrated his 9th named day with a falconry display. Despite tremors, he managed to slip the jesses on a young peregrine, laughter rising with the bird. Lords applauded. Mothers whispered that perhaps the boy might indeed reach manhood. That night, Petter hosted a council by lamplight. Royce, Waynwood, Redfort, Belmore, and Corbray circled a broad oak table, where maps lay strewn beneath glass carafes of sweet wine. The clans gnaw our borders, Petter began, while winter stocks stand ample. I propose a 3-pronged expedition come first snowfall. We lure them into the deeping gorge, Crush their warbands between Gulltown spears and Redford heavy horse. Corbray covers the rear with archers. Royce studied the map. A sound plan, but costly. I cover half, Petyr said, voice mild. Trade profits permit generosity. Waynwood traced routes with calloused finger. The gorge narrows treacherously. Corbray leaned back, flicking a dagger end over end. Treacherous gorges suit treacherous foes. Belmore chuckled. Royce exhaled. Seeing momentum, Petyr pressed. We sign militia levies tonight, muster next moon. The boy shall witness our banners and learn courage from his fathers. At Robert's mention, Royce's granite cracked. Very well. They signed. Petyr's quill flew last, ensnaring them in ink as binding as chainmail. The expedition, once victorious, would cement his role as Lord Marshal. Should it falter, Royce and Redford bore equal blame, an insurance premium payable in honor. Liza drifted further into a quilt of anxieties, fear of clans, fear of Cersei, fear of younger women eyeing Petyr. She confronted him during a midnight storm, lightning limning stone walls bright as day. You leave me, she hissed, hair unbraided, eyes red. Even when you're here, you leave. He drew her into lamplight, cupped her damp cheeks. My heart remains. I labor for Robert's future. I see the way you watch the maids. He kissed her forehead. I watch all, lest danger creep within these halls. Her sobs softened. He murmured of vows, of shared childhood, of loyalty unbreakable. Yet as he soothed, his mind counted days until the deeping gorge assault, rehearsed speeches for King's Landing investors, plotted ledger entries, masking purchase of 3 Braavosi assassins, soon to land at Maidenpool. Liza's tears were another ledger line, expenditure of patience measured in kisses. When winter's second moon crested, war banners unfurled, snow-shrouded crags. The Vale's silence rang like a held breath. Petyr remained at the Eyrie with Robert while columns marched. Redford bronze, Belmore blue, Gulltown green. Corbray rode point, crimson plume whipping. Reports arrived by Raven. Skirmish at Widow's Pass, victory. Night raid on the burned men's bark tents, success. Deep push into Deeping Gorge, enemy scattered. Casualties, moderate. Then, 2 days later, disaster. Avalanche triggered above the gorge, crushing vanguard, pinning horse line against icy walls. Over 100 dead, many Gulltown spears, 20 Redford knights. Leaderless bands staggered in waist-deep drifts, easy prey for surviving clansmen. Panic puffed like storm-blown ash through the Eyrie's courtyards. Lords clamored for withdrawal. Royce accused Petyr of faulty scouting. Corbray returned, battered. Lady Forlorn nicked to dullness, swearing he'd been ambushed by clans with Vale-forged steel. Petyr gathered them in the high hall beneath the shattered winter light of a crystal window. Liza watched from a balcony, pale as last year's snow, while the lords shouted. It was murder, Royce declared. Murder wrought by your own hubris, Corbray snapped. Petyr raised a hand, voice calm as falling ash. Gentlemen, this tragedy unites us in grief, not blame. Royce shook with fury. Your men led the vanguard. Gulltown lost more lives than any house, Petyr agreed softly. Therefore, I shall compensate every widow with thrice their husband's annual pay. Murmurs rippled. Meanwhile, he continued, the clans hold ground until we strike. We regroup at Arryn. Sir Lynn will train new archers. Lord Belmore fortifies supply lines. Lord Royce, he pivoted, will command the main host, your experience unmatched. Royce blinked. The offer disarmed rage. Pride swelled in its place. At last he nodded. Corbray smirked, sensing his own importance magnified. Waynwood measured costs, calculated survival. Thus Petyr turned catastrophe into renewed campaign, each lord bound deeper by blood and anticipated glory. Secretly he thanked the avalanche. Coin could purchase arms, but only death purchased gratitude. That night he found Robert awake in bed, clutching a stuffed owl. Outside, snow spiraled beneath moonshimmer. Father, the boy whispered. Did we lose? He sat, smoothing blankets. We stumble, then rise higher. Will I have to fight one day? Yes, Petter said, but wars come in many shapes. Some fought with swords, others with words or quills, or coins. Find the shape you master. Robert traced the owl's painted eye. I think I'd like quills. Then you shall wield them better than any knight his blade. Petter kissed the boy's brow. Sleep. He laughed, cloak brushing flagstone like whispering pages. Down the spiral stair, across an arched gallery, he paused before a window slit. Snow whipped outside. Inside, the torch cast his shadow long upon carved angels. He studied that shape, part man, part avian profile, and mused how shadows stretch as light brightens. A moon turned. The refortified host marched anew, this time guided by 3 mountain guides, bribed with silver. They flanked the clans, burned stockpiles, toppled cairns marking sacred burial sites. Acts meant to break morale more than bodies. Ravens bore news of each skirmish. Victory, victory, retreat, victory. By second thaw, the clans scattered, their chieftains slain or driven east to the mountains of the moon. At Arryn, Royce raised Robert's banner beside his own, proclaiming the boy's salvation of the Vale. Minstrels set the tale to lute before it cooled. Petter attended the victory feast but spoke little. He watched Royce bask in applause, Corbray flirt with lordlings' daughters, Waynwood tally casualty rolls. He noted which lords drank most, which servants lingered near doorway alcoves, which maester traded notes with a stranger in dusk green cloak. Every detail a seed. When torches guttered low and revelers slept in their cups, he climbed to Arryn rookery, bribed the night keeper, and penned 6 messages under a dim oil lamp. One to Varys, the Vale secure, Tyrell overtures ripen. One to Bravos, double shipment, no inspection. One to Nestor, prepare Moondoor ceremony for returning heroes. And 3 sealed in plain wax, addressed to unknown sellsword captains on the stepstones, containing only coin orders and coordinates. He felt the future humming beneath his quill. An invisible harpstring, thrumming louder each time ink kissed parchment. Weeks later, back at the Eyrie, Lysa clutched his arm as the moon door opened for celebratory viewing. Snowmelt rivers twinkled far below. Banners snapped like raptor wings overhead. Robert stood unassisted, cloak trimmed in blue summer wool, while lords knelt to swear fealty anew. Bronzion's voice echoed deepest, heavy as iron dropped upon an anvil. Petter accepted each oath with nods of fatherly pride. When proceedings closed, he escorted Robert to the high balcony, where constant wind keened like distant pipes. Look, Petter said, sweeping an arm across the horizon where valley met sky. Every field, every roof, every hearth glows brighter because you live. Robert gripped the railing. It's large, large in yours. One day you'll fly across those hills on a war falcon's back. Petter knelt. But first you must learn patience. Crops grow by seasons, not seconds. The boy nodded, solemn as a septon. Petter rose, rested a hand upon his shoulder, and felt the world pivot subtly beneath that small weight. A boy king in all but name, perched on the Erie's throne. A mother who clung to nightmares, lords bound by coin and fear. A realm farther south growing hungrier, angrier. All threads converged here, in the hush between wind gusts. Night wore on. Petter's candle burned low in his solar. He bent over ledgers, adjusting columns to funnel Gulltown tariffs into a reserve marked Owl Fund. A private chest none but he and a mute Larathi bookkeeper could trace. From that chest would sprout gifts to certain kings' guards, dowries for distant heiresses, bribes to Essosi bankers funding cell sale fleets. A soft knock surprised him. Septiminisa slipped inside, head bowed. "My lord, Lady Lysa, we cannot find her." He set quill down. "Not in her chambers. Her maids found the bed cold." A chill ghosted his spine. He strode past the septa, down corridor lit only by taper stubs. Realization unfolded like a blood-stained letter. The only place she fled in turmoil, the place she both feared and worshipped. He reached the moon door antechamber. Torches flared here, undimmed. Lysa stood before the yawning open door, winter wind whipping her nightdress. Beyond, nothing but stars and black glass valleys. "Lysa," he called. She turned, tear-tracked silver in torch glow. "It calls me, Petter. John waits. He forgives me." "Me." He stepped nearer, palms raised. "John forgave you long ago. Robert still needs you. Robert has you." She glanced over her shoulder at the abyss, then back. "You promised to marry me once. I bled for you. Now you leave me for court whores." He felt the precipice yawning not just beyond the door, but within the fragile architecture of his schemes. Lysa's death could unmoor Robert, rouse Royce, crack alliances. Yet her madness grew sharper daily, carving fissures of its own. He spoke gently. "Come away." The door's kiss is cold. She hugged herself, shook her head. "Swear love. Swear by the mother and I'll step back." He approached until the wind cooled sweat on his brow. "I loved you always." Her eyes searched, desperate. One foot slipped. Stone pebbles rattled into forever. Petter lunged, seized her wrist. She gasped, teetered, fingernails biting his skin. For an instant, he saw two futures, one where he dragged her trembling to safety and her paranoia bloomed into daily obstacles. Another where her weight tilted outward. Robert's guardianship passed solely to him. The lords sorrowed but resilient beneath new protector. He chose. Forehead touching hers, he whispered, "Only cat." Her eyes widened in mortal comprehension. His fingers uncurled. Lysa fell like discarded parchment, night swallowing her scream. Petter stepped back, heart drumming, wind slashing his cheeks. For a beat he allowed terror to bloom. Had anyone watched? But corridors lay silent. Only the torch crackled. He closed the moon door, slid iron bolts home. In the hush that followed, he straightened tunic sleeves, composed breathing, rehearsed grief. Dawn would bring scandal. The veil would tremble. Robert would shatter like delicate glass. And in that shattering, Petter would scoop the pieces, hold them up to light, fashion a new mosaic only he understood. At sunrise, alarms rang. Servants wailed, bells tolled. Petter burst into the high hall, clothes rumpled, face pale. "My wife, my heart," he cried, letting tears well. Robert, dragged from bed, collapsed at his feet screaming. Lords arrived half-armed, shock blanching them. An inquiry followed. Bronze Jan Royce led it per lord's demand. They questioned guards, maids, the mute Lorathe. No witness saw Petter in the antechamber. No prints marred frost except Lysa's slippers. A note discovered in her chamber read, "Forgive me, sweet child. I go to your father." Her handwriting, recognizably frantic. Royce's face carved deeper lines as he read it. Grief swallowed suspicion. A vote declared Lysa's death suicide, wrought by melancholy. Petter accepted their condolences with shaking hands and hollow eyes that nevertheless glimmered with resolved purpose. As widower, he now stood lawful regent until Robert's majority. The High Septon's raven confirmed within days. Petter Baelish, Lord Protector of the Vale and regent for Lord Robert Arryn, with full authority to levy troops, impose taxes, negotiate treaties, dispense justice. The realm took note. In King's Landing, Cersei scrawled margins of a letter. "Watch Baelish." At Highgarden, Olenna chuckled over tea. "Oh, the little mockingbird grows talons." Somewhere across the narrow sea, sellsword captains uncrated chests of Vale silver. Snow fell again, thicker, but did not touch Petter on the high balcony where he watched lords depart Lysa's funeral pyre. Robert slept, dosed with dream wine. Petter traced the horizon. The Vale now lay like an unbreakable coin between his fingers. He imagined next moves. Sign Saffron pact with Tyrells. Broker clandestine agreement with northern factions. Import Lysine sell sails to Dragonstone. Should Stannis rise anew. Seed Myrish artisans into Gulltown, forging secret wildfire stores. On and on, the cascade of possibilities. each path aligned toward a singular destination. He closed his eyes, inhaled snow-salt air. When he opened them, a faint smile curved. Soon, and with the same quiet certainty that once guided a ragged boy from the fingers into a great lord's household, he stepped back from the balustrade, leaving only spotless prints in the frost, already fading as dawn's pale warmth crept over the Ares' immortal stone. Windy. Snow surrendered at last to the slow insistence of spring, retreating up the flanks of the giant's lance until only ragged pennants clung to the highest crags. In the valleys below, green reasserted itself, first as timid shoots in thaw-soft meadows, then in great surging waves of grass and wildflower. The change came more slowly atop the Arryn, but Petyr Baelish sensed it all the same. The warmth in sunlit corridors, the lively hum of servants no longer muffled by furs, the faint smell of damp stone breathing after a long imprisonment in ice. Each sign reminded him that seasons were no more fixed than power, and he alone chose their pace. He stood one dawn in the high hall where Lysa's bier had lain, gazing at stained glass windows that cast kaleidoscopes across the marble. Between shifting shards of color, he pictured the realm as another window, fragile, intricate, and at his leisure to shatter or preserve. Robert Arryn padded to his side, half awake, hair tousled. "Father," the boy murmured, still refusing to call him anything less. "Why do the windows glow like that?" "They answer the sun," Petyr said, placing a hand on the narrow shoulder. "Light commands, and they obey." Robert yawned, brow creasing. "Can men be windows?" "Some men must. Some must be sunlight." Petyr guided him to the council table. "Which would you rather become?" Robert considered this gravely, lips pursing the way a maester might ponder theology. "Sunlight," he decided, "because windows break." A fond smile turned Petyr's mouth. "Then lessons begin today." Maester Coleman's syllabus expanded from herbal drafts and scripture to sums, histories, and the subtle geometry of power. Petyr sat through each tutorial, sometimes correcting Coleman's timid descriptions of old King Jaehaerys' negotiations, sometimes adding pointed questions until Robert learned to find answers unspoken between lines of parchment. The boy still tired quickly, but where weakness lingered, ambition flickered, an ember patiently fanned. Petyr commissioned fresh vellum maps, each corner etched with cunning detail, gold veins hidden under the red mountains, river fords capable of bearing armies, gentle harbor depths down the coast. He gifted them to Robert on his 10th name day. "Hold these as a knight holds his sword," he instructed. "Knowledge draws no blood, yet wins every war." Robert traced painted borders, eyes wide with awe. Whispered rumors later claimed the Lord of the Vale studied those charts nightly, memorizing distances between keeps, tallying sheep flocks and timber stands as though marshalling invisible legions. In Gulltown, meanwhile, Petyr's factors erected a new counting house, the Mockingbird Exchange, whose ledgers glistened with entries, written in a cipher only 3 clerks and Petyr himself could read. Ships docked daily now. Teroshi fruit barges, Lessene pleasure yachts rumored to carry more contraband than silk, and lean gull-winged cogs from Bravos with hulls packed full of wrought iron and shrewd sellsword captains. Each arrival paid a tariff. Each tariff swelled the chest hidden beneath the Ares' rookery floorboards. With coins secured, Petyr turned anew to armies. Bronze Yon's second campaign in the mountains had crippled the clans, yet pockets remained. Instead of a single crushing blow, Petyr employed strangling silk. He bribed rival chieftains, armed them with just enough broken spears to harry stronger neighbors, then rode in weeks later to mediate peace, claiming plunder and hostages. Captured clan youths found themselves drafted into Gulltown auxiliaries, unruly but loyal to the only lord who spared their lives. By harvest, 1,000 rough fighters drilled outside Ironoax, wearing half-moon sigils on black surcoats. A force answerable solely to Littlefinger. When Bronze Yon voiced concern, Petyr soothed him with promises of Riverland grain shipments diverted north, easing winter stores. When Sir Donal Waynwood balked at clan hostages trained as soldiers, Petyr quietly absolved Waynwood of 3 decades of back taxes. Every protest melted beneath calculated acts of benevolence, and gratitude bound the Vale tighter than iron shackles. But storms brewed beyond mountain borders. In King's Landing, Cersei's debt grew monstrous, despite Pedder's earlier miracles. The Iron Bank dispatched envoys, their gaunt cheeks and severe black coats haunting the Red Keep's galleries like ravens eyeing a fresh corpse. Word reached the Vale that gold cloaks now rationed lantern oil, that Blackwater docks lay half idle, that the gutters ran thick with feverbane whenever rain pooled in alleys. Distress, Pedder mused, had a scent, and soon it would drift north on summer winds. He received a raven from the capital, penned in a trembling hand. "Lord Baelish, your presence is required at once. His Grace grows anxious over crown finances. Delay no longer." No signature followed, yet the handwriting belonged unmistakably to Grand Maester Pycelle. Pedder studied the words as he might examine a whore's smile. For hidden malice, for the quiver of desperation behind painted charm. The crown needed him again, but this time he intended more than gold alchemy. He intended to export stability, on his terms. Before departure he convened a private council at the Eyrie. Bronze Yawn, Nestor, Waynwood, and Corbett. Robert presided, perched on his carved throne, bright-eyed and listening as Pedder spoke. "King's Landing totters," Pedder told them. "Reavers from the islands raid the coast while Lannister fleets chase phantoms. If the capital falls into famine, rumor will accuse the Vale of hoarding plenty." Bronze Yon's brows drew ridges. "We owe them nothing yet." "True, but we may sell what they buy. Grain at fair price, yes, but also assurance. A contingent of Vale Knights pledged to guard the city granaries. Our lances remain in our hands." He paused, letting them taste the strategy. "We name Robert Arryn Protector of the Grain Fleet." Robert sat straighter at his cue, though his small hand trembled around the falcon head of his scepter. Waynwood frowned thoughtfully. "A title carries little danger." "And great glory," Corbray added, lips curving. "Songs will laud the boy who fed a starving capital." Bronze Yon muttered something about lion dens, but Pedder saw consent flickering behind the old warrior's eyes. The Vale's honor polished before half the realm, Robert's legitimacy burnished. They voted, all four in favor. Robert breathed out a shaky cheer. Thus Pedder sailed south again, this time aboard the Lady Lysa, a sleek new galley whose master cabin boasted Dornish carpets and a lockbox containing 3 golden handpins, fashioned by Gulltown smiths. One might soon gleam upon his doublet. The others waited for contingencies. The journey proved swift, but King's Landing did not greet him with trumpets. At the docks, a thin line of gold cloaks in patched mail met the gangplank, captain of the harbor absent. The smell of rot clung to the mud gate. Flies clouded around baskets of spoiled river catfish. Pedder disembarked with a discreet silk kerchief pressed to his nose. In the Red Keep, he found chaos barely concealed by protocol. Servants whispered of riots in Fleabottom after a baker charged twice the usual price. The throne room's golden lions looked tarnished beneath sooty windows. Cersei awaited him in the council chamber, flanked by Qyburn, whose black eyes glittered with cold amusement. "You kept me waiting," Cersei hissed before he bowed. "The Iron Bank threatens seizure of crown lands. Do you understand the gravity?" "I understand opportunity," Pedder replied softly. "Hungry folk will trade anything for bread. Give me access to the royal mint and 8 weeks." Cersei glared, yet desperation gnawed her pride. Qyburn raised a brow. "What miracle will you conjure this time, Lord Protector?" "Non pay." Pedder placed a sealed parchment on the table. "Only contracts. The Vale's silos brim fuller than Old Town's libraries. 10 convoys already sail south. Their cargo alone buys us respite." He waited while Cersei cracked the seal, eyes flickering across tallies. She exhaled, shoulders sinking. "You demand high interest." "Cheaper than swords at your gates," he murmured. "And half the grain price will flow into trust managed by the Vale, earmarked for investment in crown infrastructure. Roads, granaries, harbor cranes. To ensure future stability." Qyburn smiled like a crow. "In essence, the Vale becomes banker to the throne." "Call it partnership," Pedder said. "One realm, many pillars." Cersei signed, quill stabbing parchment. "See it done?" Petyr inclined his head. She did not yet grasp that in authorizing the trust she granted him oversight of every project. Each stone laid, each road widened, each ship repaired would bear his ledger's flourish. Power seldom marched, it trickled. For weeks he haunted counting houses, coaxed coin from hidden crevices, minted thin silver coins alloyed with copper. Valacuts, locals dubbed them, which circulated at face value yet cost half to produce. Bakers accepted them gratefully. Once Crown Decree pledged redemption, and loaves reappeared in baskets. Petyr released grain from his convoys in measured waves, each time slightly below prevailing price, ensuring no merchant could undercut his generosity. In the short term, markets steadied. In the long term, the capital grew tethered to Vale largesse. Petyr's sigil stamped each sack, mockingbirds fluttering through the city like heralds of salvation. Poets wrote couplets praising Robert Arryn's distant benevolence. Septons wove prayers for the boy's health into evening services. Small folk might starve tomorrow, but for now, they whispered gratitude to a lord far off in mountains they'd never see. Yet King's Landing would never be home. By the third moon of his stay, Petyr walked the Red Keep's quiet corridors, and found them rank with intrigue not his making. Kettleblack brothers boasting of secret favors. Qyburn's silent orderlies, lugging covered crates toward subterranean labs. Cersei meeting a Tyrell envoy despite muttering she would see Highgarden sink beneath the sea. Too many fires, each demanding managing hands. And he had left his best kiln in the Vale. He rode out one dusk to the ruins of Harrenhal, nominally his by royal grant. The towers still twisted like blackened claws, yet Petyr saw fresh possibility. Vast courtyards for training, ash-fertile soil for orchards, a location straddling half the Riverland trade roads. He signed a charter with local stonecutters, promising wages triple the going rate. Their picks would not rebuild the whole castle, only the outer curtain and 3 dormitories, enough to house 1,000 men and 100 horses. And for that he brought in clan youths formerly of the Burned Men, now seasoned auxiliaries. They drilled beneath the shadows of melted spires, earning coin and discipline. Rumor spread that Lord Baelish forged an army among ruins cursed by dragonfire. Riverland lords laughed, then shivered. When a band of outlaws harried Oldstone's market trail, Baelish men rode down from Harrenhal with brutal efficiency, hanging brigands from Weirwood. Small folk cheered, local knights frowned, uneasy at justice delivered without their leave. Petyr returned to the capital long enough to deliver treasury reports and receive cautious praise from Cersei. Then he slipped north once more, claiming urgent counsel with Robert. Truthfully, absence itself became a weapon. By leaving before suspicion could congeal, he left only echoes of gratitude and the headache of unraveling his ledger patterns without him. He climbed the Giant's Lance in late twilight, horseback until the road turned to goat track, then mule, then basket hoisted skyward by winch. Cold air bit after rotting harbor stench, fresh and sharp. At the Erie's courtyard Robert awaited, cheeks pink from the climb he insisted on completing to impress his father. Bronze Jan stood behind him, arms crossed, steel gaze testing. "How fares King's Landing?" the boy asked. "Fed. And singing your name," Petyr answered, dismounting. He handed Robert a small carved falcon of jade from Yi Ti. "For your collection, its talons clutch gold not stone, fortune drawn by bold hunters." Robert twirled the figurine, delighted. Bronze Jan studied Petyr, then grunted. "There's talk you build a standing host in the Riverlands." "I build opportunity," Petyr said. "The realm seems fray. Someone must stitch. Stitch too tight. Cloth tears." Yet Royce's tone lacked fury. Battle victories and sweet grain payments had softened granite edges. He nodded curtly. "We prepare for the harvest tourney. Perhaps you'll join the melee." "Alas, my talents shine brightest off the field." Petyr's smile never touched eyes. The harvest tourney unfurled banners across the Vale's wide bowl near the gates of the moon. Knights from as far as Blackhaven and Maidenpool arrived chasing prizes, rumored to rival the Hans tourney of old. Petyr ensured this by quietly contributing 2,000 gold dragons to the purse, then announcing the entirety hailed from Robert's coffers. The gesture dazzled spectators, emptying none of Baelish's personal vaults. Stalls sold saffron cakes and spiced wine. Children wore wooden mockingbird masks. Musicians played ballads extolling the young lords. Silver Guardians, a poetic name for the Gulltown auxiliaries, whose half-moon badges gleamed newly polished. Corbray won the joust after unhorsing 4 challengers in rapid succession, lifting his helmet to reveal a cut across one brow that bled rakishly. Lady Miranda Royce crowned him with blue winter roses. Drunken minstrels swiftly penned a stinging verse that paired their names, inflaming Bronze Yon's temper. The melee followed. Clan youths fought beside second sons of noble houses, forging camaraderie in bruises. Petyr made a discreet wager on a lanky stone crow recruit, who, unfazed by polished armor, ducked under maces and felled 2 knights with rope-wrapped fists. The boy lost at last to a blunt strike on the temple, but Petyr's odds were favorable. The purse returned to his pocket, thicker than before. Between matches he entertained minor lordlings in a white canvas pavilion overlooking the lists. Each offered spiced goat and honeyed wine. One by one they begged for trade favors, timber rights, wool levies, lend-lease of Gulltown guards. Petyr nodded, took notes, promised follow-up ledgers. His scribe recorded every detail, later cross-referenced to each man's land disputes and marriageable daughters. On the final evening, under pale starlight, Petyr led Robert onto the tourney field. Thousands of torches flickered like captured fireflies. Trumpets silenced murmurs. The boy's voice, though thin, carried surprisingly far once Petyr whispered guidance. "I thank brave knights who rode in my name. May the Vale's wings shelter your banners always." Roars of approval answered. Robert flushed with pride, clutching Petyr's hand. Where fear once cramped his lungs, applause now filled them. From the stands Bronze Yon watched, lips tight, finally inclining his head. A soldier's salute, not to Petyr, but to the stripling lord he briefly glimpsed beneath shy demeanor. Later, as revelers straggled across fields, Petyr walked alone along rows of extinguished braziers. Distant singing drifted skyward, Corbray's men roaring of silver-winged eagles. He drew cloak closer against mountain chill, though inside he burned bright. Everything advanced according to design. Robert beloved, the Vale prosperous, King's Landing fattened on grain yet hooked on credit. Harrenhal shaping into a garrison beyond suspicion. Only one key remained unturned: the North. Ned Stark's death still echoed like drumbeats through the realm. But the North endured, sullen and vigilant. Its young king Robb marched somewhere in the Riverlands, banners fluttering from Moat Cailin to the Twins. The Vale officially held neutral ground. Still, Petyr studied every raven dispatch, every merchant whisper. War drained coffers and hearts. When both lay hollow, hope turned grave word for resurrection. He penned a letter, elegant and spare. Lady Caitlin Tully Stark. Many threads bind the living. Some fray. Others simply need deft fingers. If my balcony still offers comfort, gulls still share secrets. He sealed it with plain blue wax, addressed it to River Run. Whether it reached Cat's hand before another battle claimed her remained uncertain. But the seed mattered. A single gesture of familiarity could bloom into alliance or guilt, and either served him. Trouble struck sooner than expected. Born not of northern steel, but of heartsick grief. Bronze Yon Royce lost his youngest son, Sir Robar, felled by a thrown axe during a skirmish on Crackclaw Point, where Head accompanied Stormlander outriders. The news arrived plain and brutal, on a blood-spattered raven scroll. Royce read it in Petyr's solar. Jaw clenched so hard teeth cracked. Petyr offered condolences, poor Dark Arbor read. "The price of honor grows heavier each dawn," he said. Royce stared at the wine, then dashed the goblet against the hearth. "Honor," he spat, "is the only coin worth spilling blood for." "And blood the only ink that stains it," Petyr murmured. Royce rounded on him. "You talk of inks. You ledger pain like grain. Remember, mountains do not bend for mockingbirds." He stormed out, leaving a trail of shattered glass. Petyr knelt, plucked a shard, studied how emberlight danced along its edge. Royce's rage could poison months of cultivation. But grief could also drive men to reckless vows. That night, Petter dispatched a messenger to Harrenhal bearing orders. Double training rotations, prepare wagons for covert movement north. Contingencies sprouted like weeds in spring. Within a fortnight, another letter arrived. This one sealed with the direwolf of Stark. Petter slid it open carefully, heart beating fast at the smooth strokes of Catelyn's hand. Lord Baelish, your words reach me in hours darkened by death. Yet your balcony, though far, remains etched in memory. And those gulls once carried happier tidings. I pray still for peace that seems ever fleeing. Catelyn Stark. A flicker of triumph warmed him. She had responded, a thread yet alive. He penned reply after reply, each gentle, each weaving condolence with subtle reminder of the Vale's strength. He praised Robb's victories, lamented southern plotting, hinted that a safe harbor might lie within hollow mountain halls should tides turn foul. Across Raven's wings they corresponded. Petter shared small gifts, a miniature of River Run rendered in powdered sapphire, a vial of pale mountain honey reputed to ease wounds. In exchange she sent thanks, a carved weirwood bead from Winterfell's heart tree for Robert's collection. Through tokens, trust grew, the trust of old camaraderie twisted into new necessity. Yet, trust seldom traveled unaccompanied. One dusk, Sansa Stark arrived at the Bloody Gate with a small escort under cloak of secrecy. Her auburn hair cut shorter, cheeks gaunt, eyes haunted. Petter himself rode down to meet her litter, Robert beside him gripping a silver-tipped riding rod. Sansa dismounted, curtsied, voice a whisper. "My lord, they said you would keep me safe." "I swore it," he said, offering gloved hand. She took it, trembling. He sensed ambition's pulse in her despite fear, the resolve of one who survived a lion's jaws. He glanced to Robert. "You remember Lady Sansa?" Robert flushed, nodding shyly. Sansa managed a strained smile and murmured courtesy. Petter led them back up the pass, feeling the realm tighten further beneath his grasp. A Stark in the Eyrie, a peace worth kingdoms. Bronzeon protested at council, had doubted the wisdom of harboring a northern claimant. But Petter overruled him with gentle firmness. "The girl has suffered. We offer asylum, nothing more. Her presence lends the Vale gravitas." Corbray smirked. "And perhaps a new match for our lord." Robert's cheeks glowed crimson at the suggestion. Sansa lowered her gaze, but Petter noted a subtle straightening of her shoulders. The prospect of alliance flickered behind her solemn blue eyes. With a single stroke, the mockingbird positioned two hearts on the board. One, a falcon seeking sunlight, the other a wolf in need of shelter. Winter came early, thickening passes with slate-colored fog, cloaking the Vale in muffled hush. In the Erie's courtyards, Petter organized clandestine sword lessons for Sansa. Taught by a brave Ossie so nimble, she sometimes forgot her grief in footwork's dance. Robert watched, fascinated, stating he too wished to learn. Petter acquiesced. The weapons remained wooden and instructors gentle. Still, the mere act hardened the boy's will. Lysa would have shrieked at bruises. Petter called them badges. Nights he found Sansa atop the West Tower balcony, staring across lightning-lanced skies. He shared quiet stories, John Arryn's kindness, little Robin's first word, always framing himself as protector. She spoke seldom but listened hard, trust curling inward like a sleeping fox. On the 12th night of the first snowstorm, the Eyrie shook with horns. A raven arrived from Harrenhal. An army of men bearing flayed man banners marched south, the Boltons defecting to King Joffrey's cause. They harried Riverland's villages, threatened to cut supply lines to Gulltown's convoys bound for the capital. Petter read the missive by hearthlight, fire painting his profile in demon strokes. He drafted orders. Detach 50 Gulltown schooners to pick up grain at Maidenpool instead. Reroute shipments across Narrow Sea to Duskendale. Hire Stepstone Reavers to harass Bolton, shipping on Saltspear Bay. Each line turned enemy motion into profit, strain into leverage. He then summoned Bronzeon. They argued deep into night, Royce demanding open battle. Petter counseling measured response. At last compromise. A swift strike of Vale Knights led by Royce, supported by Gulltown mercenaries, to relieve beleaguered villages, not to pursue northern invaders outright. Royce accepted grudgingly, spurred by vengeance for his son. Petyr authorized funds, though he quietly informed his agents to shadow Royce's host and note every oath he swore. Information, after all, remained the sharpest blade. Royce's expedition rode out as snow whipped through high passes. Sansa watched them depart, face white as banners flapping. Beside her, Robert hugged a carved jade falcon, as if it might fly him beyond the mountain gloom. Petyr observed both children, eyes calculating. Grief, hope, ambition, ingredients for storms he would harness. Weeks later, ravens brought mixed tidings. Royce lances broke Bolton outriders at Elwes Horn, sacked their baggage train, rescued 200 villagers. Yet Bronze Jon suffered wounds. A mace blow shattered his shield arm. No surgeon dared promise full recovery. Petyr read the scroll before dawn beside flickering lamp. He allowed a moment's sorrow, not for Royce's pain, but for the tension that would now dissolve. A maimed commander would cling to the lord who financed his medics. Petyr dispatched the Vale's finest physicers at once, along with a chest of fresh silver, gesture enough to bind gratitude forever. As winter deepened, the Eyrie became a haven of unlikely unity. Robert studied his ledgers, Sansa honed swordcraft. They met each evening for halftime chess matches Petyr arranged, wooden pieces carved as falcons and wolves. At first Robert won easily, yet Sansa learned fast, her strategy patient, defensive, mirroring her life. Petyr watched from balcony niches, noting how Robert's respect blossomed when she surprised him with silent forking knight. Seeds of affection sprouted in hush between checkmates. Servants gossiped about wedding bells. Petyr let rumor flow. Rumor built bridges no builder could replicate. Meanwhile, he drafted dowry terms in invisible ink on sheets locked in desk compartments, each clause ensuring Baelish oversight of Winterfell's treasury should the Union ever seal. Cersei wrote, demanding additional grain as unrest flared anew. Petyr stalled. Winter roads impassable. He suggested the crown approve his plan for a new coastal highway from Maidenpool to King's Landing, financed jointly by Vale and Iron Throne. The Queen, cornered by bread riots, agreed. Thus, Petyr negotiated control over road crews, supply depots, toll gates, commerce arteries under his fingers. Yet not all threads wove smooth. Sir Lyn Corbray, restless after tourney glory faded, began frequenting alehouses outside Gulltown, where radical tongues wagged of independence from both Iron Throne and Vale Chamberlain. Corbray's presence lent dangerous credibility. Petyr confronted him in a moonlit courtyard, cold stars glittering off Lady Forlorn's naked steel. Restless nights breed treacherous dawns, Petyr warned. Corbray smirked, letting blade rest on shoulder. Perhaps dawn needs shaking. Petyr stepped closer till breath fogged between them. Remember your debts. I remember you paid them to silence steel, but steel sings louder for freedom. Corbray's eyes burned, half challenge, half admiration. You think you own this Vale, it owns itself. Petyr saw then a blade he might never fully sheath. Some men, like windows, break. Others, like sunlight, blind. But Sir Lyn was different. Mercury, impossible to hold. He weighed fates and decided caution. For now, Corbray's legend benefited him more alive. He stepped back, offering a smile, saying then, just keep to my tune. The year's final moon climbed, full and blood-tinged. In a silent rookery, the Lorathi bookkeeper brought Petyr the latest ledgers. Profits soared despite winter blockade. Harrenhal's barracks near completion. Shipments from Bravos of dark leather armor with half-moon studs would outfit 2,000 men by spring. In the candle's glow, Petyr signed off on each entry, then lingered over a final parchment. It was a genealogical chart drafted by a master scribe, commissioned months prior, tracing descent of every major house in the Vale. Red lines noted extinct branches, blue, those surviving, and a single gold thread wound from the second son of Artys, Arryn down through centuries, to, Petyr tapped the end node, Harold Harding, a boy squired presently at Runestone. Legally, he held faint claim to the Vale should Robert die without issue. Petyr smiled. Possibility shimmered like frost. 2 heirs, one frail, one distant, both manipulable. Control the lines, control the future. And he already molded one. The other awaited only circumstance. He folded the chart, sealed it, tucked it into his doublet. Morning broke white-blue over snow-shrouded peaks. Petyr stepped onto the same balcony where, seasons ago, Lysa's fears had birthed his final ascent. Icicles speared the balustrade. Breath plumed in glassy clouds. Below, the Vale slept under drifts, unaware of lattices woven above it. He thought of the boy and girl practicing chess, of armies drilling in melted towers, of roads stretching south beneath banners of falcon and mockingbird, entwined. He thought of lions gnawing on empty coffers, of wolves roaming battlefields, of roses hiding thorns. And he thought of himself, quiet in the center, fingertips poised on the pulse of kingdoms. Soon, he whispered, though no one heard save frozen wind. But the wind, ever eager for secrets, carried his word away into endless blue, scattering it across valleys where men would repeat it unknowing, until someday they realized the promise had become prophecy, and prophecy, in turn, the new law of the land.